Welcome to the Brand Groupies podcast. My name is Carrie Bellog, your host and founder of Brand Groupies. Launched in 2018, this podcast shines a spotlight on the ultimate insiders, the brand groupies, powering the ever-evolving built world. Each episode dives into the stories, passion, and creativity driving national leaders in architecture, design, real estate, and beyond. As a women-owned strategic communications agency, we've spotlighted visionary executives for over a decade, leveraging social media, public relations, and podcasting as an interconnected ecosystem to build brand visibility and drive business growth. We make our clients impossible to ignore. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Brand Groupies podcast. Today, I'm really excited to have Hurst Williamson, who serves as storytelling in residence at SW&A, a communications consulting firm that works with Fortune 500 companies to develop leaders and strengthen communication, influence, and impact across organizations. Hurst's passion lies in helping clients uncover the unique value of their own stories and teaching them how to use storytelling to navigate corporate challenges and shifting workplace norms. In addition to his coaching work, Hurst leads SW&A's sales and marketing teams. He's also the author of 2 books, Disrupted: How to Reset Your Brand and Your Career, and the historical fiction novel, The Sands Shall Witness. Very cool, Hurst. We're so excited to talk more. We've worked together throughout the years and really excited to dive in and hear more of your story.
Well, I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for letting me chat for a bit.
Amazing. And you have so much wisdom to offer as far as speaking. And I definitely want feedback after this. So let's start with your title, Storytelling in Residence. It's such a unique role. What does it mean and how do you carve out that space for yourself?
You know, it's a really good question. And to kind of answer it, I have to give a little bit of an overview of who SW&A is and what the heck we do. We are an executive communication and leadership training firm. And very fancy way of saying that we really believe that communication is the key pillar of influence. You can be the smartest person in the room, you can have the best ideas, but if you can't get them from here to here, and even more importantly, from here to someone else's ear, you're really hamstringed in how effective you are going to be as a leader, as a communicator, as sometimes even as a parent. And so what we have found within the communication space, storytelling is actually the most effective tool that any communicator has. And if you think about it, all the way back to, when cavemen were painting on walls, storytelling has been a part of our lives for so long. It's just that in business, it took a long time for whatever reason for it to really catch on and be used as a tool for influence. And so my role within the firm is to be, quote unquote, the storyteller in residence, to help generate stories for our clients, whether in a coaching relationship or as a business overall, to help ultimately communicate in the most effective way possible.
Love that. And so tell us about some of your clients and services you offer. What types of clients do you work with?
Well, it's honestly one of my favorite things about this role is it really depends from day to day, and it depends from hour to hour. Selfishly from a sales and marketing perspective, communication is important regardless of industry and regardless of title. So we work with frontline employees the exact same as we work with C-suite leaders in terms of partnering with both of them. How we actually teach them communication varies differently because each different level has different communication needs, expectations within them. What I really enjoy about this role is particularly, again, with storytelling itself, Helping somebody drive home a point or figure out a way to get beyond a difficult conversation. That's really what excites me about our
Mm,
role. And what I really love is that it's given me the opportunity to work with companies, not just here in the US, but globally,
mm.
that see the value of storytelling and are willing to invest in it. And that's honestly really cool for me.
Love that. So you've helped countless professionals find the power in their own stories. Can you tell us a little about the process? How do you go about really identifying their stories and how they should put them out into the world?
It's a really good question. And to answer it, I have to kind of give you a cop out answer in that it does depend. First and foremost, with any storytelling engagement, what we want to understand is who is the audience? Who are you trying to develop this story for? We are big believers that communication is actually all about the listener, not about the communicator. And so, organizing content from a listener's perspective is ultimately how you get to compelling storytelling. As you might imagine, there is a science to
Mhm.
storytelling. There's also an art form to storytelling. And so we teach both of those. We teach the content structure of stories, literally, how do you organize a story so that a listener can actually settle in and hear it the way it was intended to? And then the art form of how do you actually drive that connection? So, how do you do what I refer to as the transfer of emotion? So if you think about any time you've watched a comedian or a famous actor, if they can make you feel a certain emotion, that's when you connect to content. And the same is true in business content. If you are a leader that is giving a tough message about this was not the year we thought it was,
Mm,
we're going to get through it. Or, you know what, guys, we absolutely crushed this year and it's all because of you.
mm.
Those are the different kinds of emotion transfers that ultimately help somebody from an art form perspective become a compelling storyteller.
Got it. That was so compelling just by what you said already. You sparked emotion in me, Hurst.
Well,
Thank
I hope
you.
I can do what I talk about, right?
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that. I think my issue is I love telling stories, but I might go on and on and on, so I need to, like, get to the point sometimes. So your first book, Disrupted: How to Reset Your Brand and Your Career, tackles reinvention. What inspired you to write it, and what does resetting your brand really mean?
Well, it's honestly one of the coolest experiences I've had. So you might imagine Sally Williamson and Associates. I am Hurst Williamson. There is a
Mhm.
connection. I have the distinct
I was
pleasure
going
of
to ask.
actually working for and learning under my mother, which is
Oh,
just honestly probably the coolest experience I could have asked for. I'm sure both she and I would at times tell you this was a terrible idea, but we've really gotten to a place now where it's a terrific partnership. And the book was really one of the first projects we worked on together. And it took a variety of different forms. At one point, it was going to be a book specifically about early career and how to help settle into corporate America. At one point, it was going to be a book called From Competent to Compelling, all around how leaders
mhm,
go from not just managers, but to really compelling leaders. And the interesting part around the concept of reset, I'm actually a reset and a reinvention case myself.
mm,
When I was in college, every summer I went to Washington, D.C., worked for the government, and all of a sudden realized that was not going to cut it. And I didn't want to do that. So, very quickly, kind of fell into a role when I left school. It was not anything that I wanted, and I could not get out of that job fast
mm,
enough. And interestingly enough, that's kind of how I wandered into SW&A, thinking I'd be here for 1 or 2 years while I reset myself.
yeah.
And now this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my career. So, first and foremost, I actually have the experience of going through the Sally Williamson coaching around reinventing yourself. So, for me, it's become a really interesting part of my coaching client engagements of how do I help somebody think through what are the key attributes that really make them who they are?
Mm,
And as you dig a little bit deeper into that, what is actually the job skill that can align to that? Because it's so much broader than most people think. Kind of the three classic examples I give is Chobani a number of years ago hired a Michelin star chef to be the head of customer success, which seems crazy right off the bat. Of, well, now
Mhm.
wait a minute, this person hasn't worked in corporate America a day in their life. Why did you just give them this big role? Well, because actually their entire world was around customer service.
Mm,
So it may not be exactly what you're looking for, but the heart of what you were looking for is no better candidate.
sure.
Somebody, another one of my clients hired a radio DJ to run a virtual sales team. Again, not, not exactly the
Mm.
experience you would be looking for, except when you realize that a radio DJ can talk to an invisible audience about anything, no matter what. So
Yes.
you're going to be pretty hard pressed to trip them up. And my personal favorite, because I'm a big animals guy, Zookeeper became the head of international logistics. Little odd until you think about, well, now wait a minute, they have clients that get pretty upset and hungry and dangerous if they don't get
Yes,
exactly what they need when they need it.
that's awesome. I love that. Thanks for sharing. And I just wanna ask too, growing up as a mom of boys, growing up, were you hanging out at the office? I mean, I know you went a different path, but I'm sure you picked things up. How was it growing up being around your mom and just watching her? It's really cool.
Well, I will say she is probably the strongest communicator I've ever seen,
Mm.
which on a personal note makes it incredibly difficult to win an argument with her.
Ooh.
But I have been around the office for a long time. In fact, I've been around it since it was a home office before it
Mhm.
became a brick and mortar. And there's a picture on our website of me. I think I was probably 3 or 4 in that instance, and I am sitting right next to her. So I always like to say that I have been working with Sally for more than 30 years,
Yeah.
particularly because when I tell people that, they look at me kind of funny and try to figure out how old I am.
That's too funny. I love that. So the workplace is constantly evolving with new norms and challenges emerging. How can storytelling help leaders navigate all that change?
So it's a really tough space in corporate
Mm,
America. Regardless of if your company is doing well or not, I think we're all kind of still feeling a little bit of this disruption. And what's so fascinating to me from a storytelling place is people tell me all the time, oh, well, we have tons of stories. We have so many stories, just a waterfall of stories. Not really. What we have is a waterfall of content. There's more content than has ever existed before, but we're actually getting worse at how to make content connect with people. And to
mm,
me, that's really the difference between, this is just information, or this is a sales story, this is a customer story, this is an example of something we did versus true storytelling. And true storytelling really kind of gets at one of the key metrics of leadership that employees are kind of expecting more of than ever before, and it's authenticity.
mm,
We're getting ready in this upcoming year to rework on a book about executive presence. And
mm,
in our early research, what we found is none of the attributes that were defined as executive presence, the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, early aughts, they're all still there. But what's changed is that the expectations of presence have expanded. And
mm,
one of the key ones is employees are a lot more vocal than they ever have been about, no, if you're not an authentic leader, I'm not really interested in working on your team.
mm,
Okay. Message loud and clear, heard by our coaching clients. But what does that mean? It's
yeah.
kind of that oddball question. A few years ago, it used to be, oh, I really want to be a strategic leader. Okay, great. That means 99 different things to 99
Mhm,
different people. So really where we see the connection is that if you go back to, what I said at the very beginning, storytelling is the best possible form of communication to make something sticky in someone's mind and to connect with them. Being an empathetic leader and an authentic leader doesn't mean you surrender the reins of management. It just means that you're approaching your communication in a style that's far more real than a lot
mm.
of the content swirl that's out there right now.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And it's interesting because we manage podcasts for executives, and we hear all the time their employees say, you know what, I wanted to work at this company because the president, I've listened to all his podcast episodes. I've heard him talk. I've heard him, talk about things that he did wrong and what he felt. And I feel like it really resonated with them. So it's interesting to hear that. That's a really good point. So you work with Fortune 500 companies on communication and influence, helping to prepare C-suite leaders for keynote speeches. What are some of the biggest communication mistakes you see leaders make, and how can they fix them?
It's a really simple switch, actually.
Yeah.
I would tell you wrong presentation, wrong audience is the number one thing we see. And if I
Mm,
was to kind of dive a little bit deeper into that, I would probably summarize it by saying they are focused on pushing information out and they didn't focus enough on pulling people in. So, one of the best examples I can give you early in my career, I saw a reputed world class speaker. I'm not going to tell you who it was because they're still around and I don't want to get
mhm,
in trouble. But they were kind of famous for telling these amazing stories, these great stories of hardship and leadership and how they were just kind of the next level evolutions of lessons leaders need to take from these incredible heroes. And what fascinated me about 5 minutes into this talk was everybody was on their phone or their laptop or not really paying attention.
mm,
And what it took me a while to realize was none of these stories were actually relatable.
mm,
So it's one thing to hear about, running a race that's the last man standing, an ultra marathon that takes place over 100 days. Okay, you're talking to a room full of people on a Monday at a work conference event. You might have one or two in here that are interested in an ultra marathon, but that was an odd topic to
mm,
try to get that audience excited about things.
yeah.
It doesn't always have to be black and white. We do talk about communication as a blend of style and content. It's possible if you were the most grandstanding executive presence having just compelling communicator, you might be able to jazz me up a little bit with really boring content. Or if you had the world's best exciting content that was the cutting edge of AI, but you're not very compelling as a communicator, you might be able to get me excited about the topic, but it is so much harder.
Mm,
And so, where we have found that senior leaders disconnect with an audience is I know what you wanted to get out of this presentation. I know why you are telling me this. If the audience doesn't, you miss the mark.
mm. Very good points. Yeah, that's true. So for someone who is trying to strengthen their personal or professional brand, where would you advise they start?
I would start with feedback, and
Mm.
it's the absolute most awkward, worst, just clunky form of communication. I mean, we could have a whole other podcast about feedback around why managers don't like giving it and why employees don't like asking for it.
Mhm.
The truth of the matter is that feedback is the greatest gift that you have as to where you stand, not only with your current manager or your team, but also with your colleagues.
Mm.
And I am somebody who naturally, I definitely still am probably a little hot-headed and a little hard-headed. Um, it's not always fun to get
Yeah.
feedback. You didn't do something right, or this is what you could have done better. My coaching is always you don't have to agree with the feedback, but everyone has a right to feedback. And
Mm.
their impressions that they're giving you are real. So, regardless of whether or not you think they're justified, regardless of whether or not you think you come across as disinterested in meetings, or whether or not you think you steamroll your colleagues in meetings, it's real. That impression is real. And if you don't address it, or if you aren't proactive in trying to figure out what those impressions are, it can come back and bite you a few years down the road when someone who was on your team who had a negative impression of you is potentially putting together a high profile team to work on the greatest up and coming AI challenges, and
Mm,
you're shocked that you weren't picked.
mm,
Well, because they haven't seen you in 2 to 3 years and they held on to that impression.
that impression.
It's a little scary to think about, but your personal brand is actually how people think about you and talk about you when you're not there. And until you give them a reason to change it, they will hold on to that for an incredible amount of time. I
Mm.
mean, there are kids that I went to kindergarten with that I still have a negative impression of because they didn't let me go down the slide and then they moved away, right?
I
We
know. I have a friend who didn't let me play with her dollhouse, and I'll never forget it. I think we were 4.
until she gives you a reason to change perspective, that's what you hold on to. And
Yeah.
it's no different in a corporate setting.
That is so fascinating. Really is. Oh my gosh, we could talk all day long. So, what are your top 3 tips for helping leaders elevate their public speaking game?
So I'm going to cheat a little bit and give you one big topic and then two little subtopics with it. The first thing, and it goes right back to where we see the best of the best leaders trip and fall on their stage presence. Communication is never about you. It was the first piece of feedback that I got when I started studying under Sally.
Mm,
It does not matter if you go up in front of a workshop group and you're great, because that's not why they're there. They're there to have you help them be great, or they're there to figure out if the company is doing the right things. Is this where I want to be? Do my leaders actually care about us? Those are the kinds of things that communication is really designed for. Within that, I would tell you that intent is always my key word that I come back to with coaching. What is the intent of what you're trying to do? We always think about content as content. Sorry, we all I
mhm.
knew I was going to have a faux pas
That
at some point.
too.
Always think about communication as two parts, content and style.
Mm,
And the intent behind both of them is to make the communicator connect with the listener and to make the listener feel okay about where
mm.
something is going or excited about a particular initiative.
Oh, that's really, really good to hear. Thank you. So, as we look to the future, what's next for Hurst and SW&A?
It's a great question. The book next year, I'm very excited about.
Mm,
I think, communication topics are often cyclical. And it's funny, you can work for 3 months on the concept of feedback, and that's pretty much all you teach. And then you don't see it again really at that volume for another 3 years. We're starting to see a lot of needs around executive presence. And I think it's because we're really now starting to settle into the field of, well, people who moved up during COVID or moved organizations, it's all settled back down
mm, mhm,
enough to the point where we're starting to identify where actual blind spots are with leaders of if someone is going to get to the next level, we can't keep coasting on this a little bit. We're going to have to either address this, make them aware of it, or we're going to need to start grooming somebody else. And so executive presence is a big one for us in the year upcoming. Luckily for me, because I am at the
mm,
heart of storytelling, storytelling remains a big part of what we do. And it remains a huge part of who I am. I am
mm.
somebody that loves stories. It's something I share with Sally, always have, always will. And we're excited for the year ahead.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, we're excited for you, and thank you so much for being a guest. Where can everyone find you on social?
Well, it's easy, but also sad how to find me on
Okay.
social. I am a very, very old man when it comes
Oh
to
gosh.
social media. I do not have
Yes.
a Twitter. I do not have a TikTok, any of that, no Instagram. I am on Facebook and
LinkedIn.
I am on LinkedIn.
right? Okay. And the company, of course, has LinkedIn
Company
channel.
has LinkedIn. Company has a
Sally
website,
Williamson.
www.sallywilliamson.com. And
Perfect.
I am super easy to find. I'm Hurst, Hurst, at sallywilliamson.com.
Oh, fantastic. Well, this was such a fun conversation, Hurst. Thank you for your time and your wisdom. And I think a lot of people can learn from your advice and also look to hire you guys in the future.
Well, here's hoping. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you very much. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you.